Sekejap. Boleh lah. Anik, kita stop sharing your slide dulu sebab kita nak buat introduction, tapi both of you just on the mic lah. Okay? Alright. Now is 9:29. We will start record this Zoom, and then we will start stream it to our Facebook. Once it's streamed, then I will start the introduction lah. Okay. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Marian from Utah. Welcome back to today's webinar on Science Communication and Innovation 2020 with title Hydrostat, a revolutionary microplastic capturing device from an idea to the world stage and beyond. If you have any question, please leave your question in the chat box. We are streaming this webinar live on e-KLESF Facebook. So please help us to like and share this video. Now, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Adik Anik Faris and Haris Hazwan. Both are from the Malay College Kuala Kangsar, MCKK, and also the finalists of Regeneron ISEF 2020. So without further delay, over to you, Anik and Haris.
All right, so hi everyone. Before I start, guess what? So the past 5 seconds, at least one aquatic animal has just died due to the ingestion of microplastics. Imagine if one day this were to happen to your family, to your relatives, and even to your friends. Well, before I continue even further, we are from the Malay College Kuala Kangsar, 17-year-old students, and here we are to present our project, which is the Hydrostat. So one day a teacher once asked the students what lives in the ocean, and one girl in particular answered it was microplastics. And that was a very shocking answer to hear from a 6-year-old student. Basically, before we continue, I would like to introduce the host and speakers for today. So my name is Muhammad Izanik bin Muhammad Faris. I am 17 years old, a pure science student, and one day I aspire to become a biomechanical engineer. I've been having a lot of experience in science, robotics, and engineering since I was a child in primary school, and I have been pursuing this passion ever since. And Hazwan, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Anik. And my name is Haris Hazwan bin Edino. You can just call me Haris. I too am 17 years old, and I'm from the Malay College Kuala Kangsar. I aspire to be an environmental engineer because that's what I feel will have the most impact on the world in the future. And for innovation, it came as a surprise to me. At first, I wasn't really interested, and over time, it really kind of grew on me.
Thank you, Aris. So now continuing to the plastic problem. Generally, every year, humans we produce around 8 million tons of plastic, and that all goes to waste. And unfortunately, a fraction of that enters the ocean, and when it does, it usually doesn't go back. And it gets worse as these plastics, they don't degrade, but rather they take the advantage of they take the advantage of photo degradation and physical damage, where they don't actually disappear from this world, but they break down into smaller pieces through photo degradation, exposure to UV lights, or even physical damage. For example, you take a bottle and you rip it into smaller pieces, and that will happen occasionally as these plastics aren't that resilient and they encounter the problems of the ocean, such as other living beings and the water currents and such. And in the end, they break down into pieces smaller than 5 millimeters, which they are now considered as microplastics. So these are some photos of microplastics that we don't actually know exist in the world. Most people would think this as a problem not really crucial for us to solve, but actually it potentially can be more dangerous than the normal plastics you see outside. So Haris?
So as Anik just said, microplastics, they're all around us, and yes, they may be micron size, but even the small things can make a huge impact on us. As you can see in the news articles presented here, microplastics, they can be found anywhere, in the air, on land, in water. That's why it's such a huge threat to us. They're so small that we can't even see them. They're practically invisible. So when they get ingested, because they are in water, of course, they get ingested by fish. And fish, well, they tend to end up on our dinner plate and in our stomachs. So eventually we get the ingestion of plastic into our own bodies. And did you know, as a fact, that on average, a normal human being ingests about a credit card size of plastic every week? Yes, every week. That's a lot, if you ask me. And well, plastics, they get ingested by fish, but not digested, because fish, their digestive systems, they can't process the plastic, so they accumulate in the fish and end up into a large concentration in the fish, and also in water, because as for right now, our water purification systems, they can't cope, they can't filter out micron-sized particles such as microplastics. So eventually they end up in our drinking water and of course in our food. And microplastics, they're very common. They're found in face washes, hand creams, body soaps. Those little beads that you think exfoliate your skin, well, they tend to wash down the drain and eventually into the sea. So this is a problem that is really large, is a huge problem that still we don't have a conventional method to solve yet. And that's why we decided to tackle this.
Thank you, Azan. Now moving on, if we look at current conventional methods or methods that are really out there that are aiming to tackling these plastic problems, we have the one most famous one that was invented by Boyan Slat. When he was only 16, he had this idea, and that became the Ocean Cleanup Project. Well, this was essentially an idea to remove plastic waste from the ocean, but passively using a 100-meter long tube. It generally uses naturally occurring forces such as the winds, waves, and even water current to drive or accumulate the plastic waste into that tubing you can see on the screen here. And then after a few days, they would be collected by a seaboat or whatsoever. But as you can see, through this implementation of this project, it costs a lot of time, and not to mention, it also costs a lot of money. let alone human work itself. And we've been tracking the process of the ocean cleanup project, system 001 over here, as you can see. And we've noticed they lack some things that are quite crucial in regards to our problem that we want to discuss today, which is they lack the ability of collecting microplastics. As you guess, microplastics are too small to be captured in the netting of the system itself. Now, it's not that they don't, in the world now, it's not that we don't have products that are already out there to capture microplastics in the ocean, but we have things such as these. We have the Ladi trawl and the Manta trawl, and also the Hulawan. Yes, well, we are not going to ignore the fact that they work, they do their job perfectly, but one thing they lack is efficiently. Such as the trawls you can see here on the left and right hand side of the screen, what they lack compared to the ocean cleanup project is that they do not use the naturally occurring forces of the ocean. You would have to drive them by yourself by towing them from a boat. And then for the hula one, it is basically, you can see from the photo itself, it is large and it requires a lot of human energy and also energy resources such as fuel and all. As basically the way it functions is that it doesn't practically removes microplastics from the ocean. As we are talking about today, it can only filter microplastics that are washed up in the sand by filtering the sand. So we can see the flaws that we have in the current conventional system we have right now. So what we wanted to do, that we aspired to build something to actually counter the problems that we have just addressed. So we came out with the Hydrostat. Generally, this is a device that uses the concept of static electricity to extract microplastics from water and actually bring them out from the water. So as you can see here, this device, it's quite simple. It comprises of two main components. On the left-hand side, we have the negatively charged aluminum mesh. And on the right-hand side, we have the positively charged aluminum plate. So the basic idea of this project is that, as you can see from this diagram here, it's supposed to be floating on water, and we have the two main components submerged in water. So what as you can see, the negatively charged aluminum mesh and the positively charged aluminum plate, sorry, typo over there. The way it functions is that you can see from this video, the ions on the right-hand side of the diagram will be charged from the plate. These are basically ions that are already present freely moving in water, but they are induced by charge from the positively charged aluminum plate, and the ions will obviously find something inert to attach themselves to. In this case, seawater is not something that you usually find something inert unless they are the microplastics, as most of the components in seawater are organic, such as salts and other biotic materials. So as you can see, the lump of colorful pieces over here, they represent the microplastics. And after they attach, the positively charged ions attach themselves to the slightly negatively charged microplastics. Even though they are net, they have the tendency, due to the triboelectric series, the law in the triboelectric series, microplastic materials, they have the tendency to gain that slight negatively charged electric charge, but they aren't strong enough. So we use the positive ions to actually convert them into a positively charged particle. It sounds complicated, but you can understand more as we play the animation over here. As you can see, as a charge, they go to the particles and they give it a negative charge. Sorry, they give it a positive charge. After the particles become positively charged, and as we learn in science, positive and negative attract, they will be attracted to the negatively charged aluminum mesh. It sounds complicated, but we found that this was one of the only efficient ways in gaining the microplastic particles from the ocean, as we have a lot of other cofactors. We can't simply use filters since they do not only range around millimeters, they can go down to micron size. We have certain meshes and filters able to filter the microplastic products, but we found them quite ineffective due to the cost they have. So this is basically the simple design of the netting to capture the microplastic particles. And this was the photo we took of the first prototype of the Hydrostat. As you can see here, compared to the expensive mesh I mentioned earlier, this product only consists of really cheap materials that you can find every day at your local hardware store, such as PVC pipes and other circuit materials. This is the product, as you can see, floating on water as we tested it out in a pool. So you may be wondering how it works, since as I explained, the process, it looks a bit complicated. So now Haris Hazan will break it down on how the concept actually works.
Okay, so how it works is using a law which we learned in physics, which is Coulomb's law. It's, to put it simply, it's the law of attraction between particles, whether they're positive or negative, because as Anik said, positive and negative, they attract. So in the law, this is the formula. It's, yes, it looks a bit complicated, but it's really simple when you break it down into little pieces. There is the force of attraction between particles, and K is Coulomb's constant. It's a constant which applies for any medium that you use, in this case, seawater. Q1 is the quantity of charge of any object, in this case, the microplastics. Q2 is the quantity of charge of the netting, and D square is the distance between those particles squared. So in all, what we found out was that in Coulomb's law, the K is actually can only be used for air, normal air. So as Anik said, our project it's meant to work in seawater. Therefore, we needed a new constant. So we did a bit of research. We asked professors, experts, even our own physics teachers. And well, what we came up with was this. It's a new constant. This was calculated by my friend Irfan. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend. But it really was a huge discovery for us that we were able to find something that was different, that could explain why this was all happening. Because before this, we literally couldn't explain. We couldn't figure out what was actually happening. It was really mind-blowing when when we first experimented using the prototype. When we found out that it actually worked, literally all our teammates, all the four of us, we literally jumped in joy. Seriously, we celebrated that night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when we got the results, because we found out that all our hard work there, it paid off, that we were able to find something, to make a discovery. That's really satisfying, actually.
So basically, from all of the complicated stuff you just heard, which may be a bit overwhelming for normal people, even it was overwhelming for me when I first heard about this concept. Well, we asked around with our physics teacher, with our science teacher and all, and we managed to come up with 2 crucial circuits that are the main components of this working system. As you can see, we have the schematic circuit for the positive ion generator, and we have the schematic circuit for the negative ion generator. And as you can see, this was the photo of the first ever prototype we built of the circuit, which became essentially the main thing, the hydrostat that we wanted to promote. As you saw earlier, that was only the mere body of the hydrostat, which can be replicated anywhere, but this is what we are proud of. We are proud to present today and how it has become a working prototype. Now, we can't quite just justify that it works through showing you guys visual diagrams and animations. So we've conducted an experiment, and that experiment has been successfully conducted the first time by our teammate Hazwan. So now he will describe his process.
So first we needed the materials, as you can see here. That one in the top left corner, that's homemade microplastics. I I actually produced it by just crushing some plastic containers and blending it and using a lesung batu to just smash it up into small pieces. That's what we actually used in our initial experiment.
Wait.
So here's our project in my homemade experiment. We put the microplastics in the container there with the water and just plop the project onto the top. And so after a few hours, that what I mentioned before, at about 2 a.m., I came back and we saw this, that the plastics, the microplastics that I had left for a few hours, they had accumulated there. Maybe you can't see, but at the net there, the mesh there, those microplastics, from floating all around, they became attracted. They started to accumulate and get attracted to the net.
Thank you, Haris. So from this photo alone, it is still hard to say that this product even works because they are merely only photos. So we actually did something to prove our product, right? So we actually recorded a time lapse of one of the very other few experiments we conducted after this, prior to this. So this was one of the video we managed to capture after a long night, one of the successful videos. And as you can see, the color is a bit different for the project as we made it a couple of times. We designed a few prototypes, but these were one of the ones, but they still use the same circuit as we shown to you guys earlier. So from this 60-minute, this was the experiment as an hour, as most of the, well, actually all of our experiments we've conducted with the same variables and with the time of 1 hour. So after this, we'll show the results, but before that, as you can see, the black pieces are the microplastic particles. At first they start swirling around, but as they gain more charge, they start to accumulate to the right-hand side of the screen over here, in which that is to the negatively charged aluminum mesh. So now on to the results. Aris?
So for this experiment, there are two main columns here, for 30 minutes and 60 minutes. There on the before, we can see that the mass of plastic I used, of microplastics, was 15 grams, and the concentration was 1.5 grams per liter. And after 30 minutes, we can see that the number of the mass of microplastics left in the container, the sort of bathtub that I used, it started to decrease more and more. And after 60 minutes, we found that it accumulated to that it was able to collect up to 10 grams of microplastics, and that was only after 60 minutes, 1 hour. And this was still a prototype. It was like a small version of what we planned to do. And even with this success, we were able to collect all this microplastics, which would normally be invisible to our naked eye. Imagine that, invisible. And from invisible, it became visible, and we were able to collect it. It was really magic when we found out that the device worked. We were able to do it.
So even to some, it may seem small, as Haris mentioned earlier. You can see the final results were only around, the average was around 0.5 grams per liter. But we would just want to say that there was still, as Haris mentioned, it's still only a mere prototype of the project. And we still have a lot of variables to toy around with, such as the magnitude of the voltage we use for the circuit itself, the size of the mesh, and we are still toying around. But for now, we are only proud to say that it works, and we found that this was a very new research for the whole of the science community, as we have not found any other devices capable of doing the same. So maybe some of you be wondering what is the difference between our product and the one that we mentioned earlier? What are the better benefits of the Hydrostat? Aris?
So first, compared to conventional methods that we mentioned before, first, the conventional methods require the assistance of boats. That meaning that they need an external motor, an external power source to actually bring the devices to the location where the plastics are, compared to the hydrostat where it literally attracts plastic to it instead of us having to find where to to find microplastics. Because I repeat, microplastics, they are invisible in water. That therefore they would be literally impossible to find in the water. And next, conventional methods, they're expensive and utilize scarce materials. Those projects, those conventional methods that we mentioned earlier, they're expensive. Like no company would profitably remove plastics from water. And they utilize scarce materials, which all in all, it contributes more to another problem. This is compared to the hydrostat, which is fairly priced because we use literally things we could buy at a local hardware store to do this, and common items and materials that you could find anywhere. And next, they're potentially hazardous. One of the devices, one of the methods that Anik mentioned before, it's almost like a vacuum. It's a vacuum in the water. It sucks plastic. But not only does it suck plastic, it also sucks marine life, fish, uh, and other aquatic life. This is compared to the environmental friendly and the environmental friendly hydrostat, which it just attracts plastic. It doesn't affect any other organism, microorganism in the water. Therefore, it's safe to use. It's safe to use for near beaches, near rivers, near riverbanks, near people where places live. It's safe. It's really all in all better than the conventional methods that we mentioned before.
Thank you, Aris. So now we move on. We want to say that yes, you can see that our project is still not perfect, even though it does its job. But still, we can say that there's still a lot of room for improvement. Aside from the circuit, we have the device of the hydrostat itself. We plan to uh, implement a multitude of future innovations to the project itself, such as you can see the three items here. First is the implementation of renewable energy. Of course, to create a device capable of saving the environment, we would have to avoid other problems in the first place. We would not want to create a loophole where we are tackling microplastics, but at the same time we are causing air pollution and other types of pollution that may deter the environment. So our main idea would be to implement solar panels, since it's obvious, it seems cliche, but it works somehow, especially in the oceans, and since it's very open there and easily exposed to sunlight. Next, what we want to have is additional storage for more yield, more gain of the hydroxide itself. As you can see, the yield of the hydrostat as shown in the results earlier weren't as satisfying, but mainly one of it was due to the fact that the netting wasn't large enough to accommodate for all of those microplastic materials. So what we want to do maybe in the future is to increase obviously the size of the netting, but we want to also add upon a storage box for the device itself, as it can be used more and over again without having the need of humans to come and collect the microplastics like in a daily basis. So next would be an obvious one, as we are living in a millennium era and everything is starting to get connected. So we would like to implement the Internet of Things. We would like to build our own system upon the hydrostat itself, so it can monitor data not only important to the functionality of the hydrostat itself, but also in regards to the environment around it, in regards to the surrounding of the hydrostat itself, such as the weather or the humidity, crucial factors that may affect or deter the performance of the hydrostat. And we'll also use this to maybe monitor the capacity of the hydrostat, such as it will only notify humans, the user interface, only when the item or only when the hydrostat is at its full capacity. So more on the utilization of the Internet of Things, or basically we would like to implement microcomputers into the device itself, in which, as you can see on this side over here, Arduino Incorporation, we would like to also add upon location tracking for the device itself, since we don't want this to be a device that is manually controlled, as what's the point of having an automatic device when you would have to need someone to monitor the Hydrostat 24/7. So we would like to actually incorporate the idea of the ocean cleanup, which is to let the hydrostat flow around passively in the ocean, let it move around, let it find its own plastic waste. As yes, plastic waste is an ubiquitous item, so it won't be that hard to find. Aside from that, we'll also like to add position retainers. Now, this may seem and look a little bit complex, but the idea is that you want to have the device and the water current help the device, the flow of the water, so that the microplastics will flow into the netting far more easier than having to use the force of the electrostatic charge alone. So as you can see sit on the side, we have water flow sensors that will detect the current, and the device will move itself accordingly to the current, such that it is directed opposed to the current, so that it utilizes the passive energy of the current to help its performance to further increase its yield and efficiency. So as we mentioned, we wanted to also prove a point that this is way much more cheaper than most of the other projects, because one example would be the ocean cleanup. It needed the fund of millions and billions of dollars online on Kickstarter for the project to actually commence, let alone the Hula One, which cost around $100,000. And well, the Mantra cost really cheap, but you would not want that as it lacks efficiency. So
Here's just the proof that our project is way cheaper. As you can see, the materials there, I'm not gonna list them out one by one, but as you can see, they can be bought from any hardware store. I mean, batteries, PVC pipes, spray paint. That's all at Mr. DIY. And overall, the cost of this prototype was 200 ringgit. And 200 ringgit isn't for just the prototype. It's after us failing and rebuilding, rebuilding again. So all in all, 200 ringgit to come up with a solution to a problem which normally costs millions of ringgit. That's really cool. And another thing that we get is experience, because I remember that when we were first building this prototype, the PVC pipes that we bought, they weren't like little PVC pipes. They were huge, long PVC pipes. So it was the job of my friend Irfan and I, and we had to hold the PVC pipes while riding our bikes across town. Like every single person walking by on the street, in the shop, they were just staring at us. It was an experience like no other. It was really, really weird.
so yeah, basically Hazwan just mentioned how the cost is way more effective than what's out there. Yeah, 200 ringgit may seem a lot, but we'll tell you why it's worth it later on. So now about the journey that it took us to build or to actually accomplish what we have now today. We would like to provide a disclaimer that we did not build this by the two of us. We actually had the help of two other team members, which aren't able to present themselves today, and also with the help of our science teacher. So this photo was taken in 2018 before we took flight to India, in which was the official inauguration of the hydrostat being presented to the outside world. Basically, we were selected based on our reputation and performances on previous competitions. So this was the photo taken in India. As you can see, All of the teammates are there, including an Indian professor, really famous over there. So there we met a lot of participants as just to share that this isn't actually a competition. We were invited to represent Malaysia, to represent the one of the 10 ASEAN countries. We had other countries from the ASEAN community such as Cambodia, we have the Philippines and many other that were involved, that attended. So there we learned a lot of new experiences, and we were proud to say that everyone was astonished by our project. They found something that was different and not something that is usually you find in an everyday science fair. Till the point we got noticed and we got interviewed by the media of India, as you can see, by India's television and um, newspaper communities and all. And well, it did not. Well, as you see, everything here did not end up simply like this. We did not achieve this in a snap of a finger. Sorry. Most people will only see the tip of the iceberg, where this all of the success is, but they don't actually see what's beneath it, what's keeping it afloat. We had spent countless hours of sleepless nights, brainstorming sessions, um, fooling around with electronic stuffs. We asked around the teachers, and well, it was a very challenging time for us, as it was also our year of examination. 2018, we all took our PT3 that year, so we had to divide our time with education and co-curricular activities. So it was hard, but it's that one thing in us that actually drove us to accomplish what we actually have now, in which the spirit of teamwork. We wanted to achieve one goal, and that goal was uniform for all of the others. Due to that, we managed to work ourselves through, and alhamdulillah, the dream was achieved to build something that was different from others, in which, in this case, to extract microplastics from water in a very different way. So we progressed from this to our first ever presentation in India, which was a very nervous experience, since it was our first time presenting in a large crowd consisting of professors and scientists from other countries. And we did not stop there. Well, since it was only a fair to present ideas, it wasn't that normal competition where you would gain awards. So we wanted to move forward. We persisted to gain more recognition on the project itself. So we started making our improvements. We conducted meetings on a weekly basis, and yes, all of this hard work. And we are proud to say that after persisting for countless sleepless nights, from the year 2019 to 2020, we managed to accumulate a total of 13 gold and 1 silver awards from our various applications into a multitude of competitions, ranging from university level to school level and even to the international level. And out of all of these achievements, our recent, and to be honest, I would like to say it's one of our proudest achievements, is that we were selected by the national science community based on our winnings from the last year's PISTEK competition, Pertandingan Inovasi Sains Teknologi dan Kejuruteraan. We got deemed as national champions, and we were selected to represent Malaysia, supposedly into the Regeneron ISEF, which is the International Science and Engineering Fair for 2020. It was supposed to be in Anaheim, California, but unfortunately, due to COVID competitions, we only held the competition online. But regardless, we still gained a lot of experience and a lot of important life lessons from the progress of building the project itself. We managed to build new friends. We improve our networks that comprises of people of all ages from all around the globe. And basically, we do not plan to stop here. this isn't our final dance, as we want to actually create this, we want to progress this further on to the point that we want to patent this project and actually introduce it to the outside world, to the real outside world, not only just Malaysian people and competitions and such. We want, our main goal is to actually get ourselves hooked with Boyan Slat, the man I mentioned earlier about the ocean cleanup project. And we saw since his project lacks collecting microplastics, we plan of implementing our project with the system itself. Now, the thing I wanted to touch on earlier in regards to the cost of the project, as you can see, yes, 200 ringgit seems like a lot to spend for a bunch of 16-year-old boys. But to be honest, it wasn't our main concern. And even if this project managed to gain success hereafter, later on, we don't actually want to sell this as a product because we do not want to take money out of people's pockets. We're not selling this as a product, but we are selling this as a solution. The main aim of this product at the beginning of the journey was to actually bring upon change to the world. We wanted a cleaner environment for the future generations, and yes, that includes us. And basically, with Hazwan's high aspiration to become an environmental engineer. So with this, we actually want to progress further and build a better nation for everyone, for the betterment of humankind itself. With that, we hope that this project is able to cope in line with the 14th Sustainable Development Goal, which is life below water, one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals proposed by UN. And yeah, it may seem that it's a big goal, but to be honest, you cannot do everything on yourself. Even though our project seems to contribute only like a fraction of it, even a little bit, a small percentage of the big problem itself, but you need to know that this isn't a race and this is a marathon. We not we do not propose to actually provide the full solution, as we have a lot of other brilliant minds out there with a lot of brilliant ideas to change the world. We are only proposing this as a puzzle to the jigsaw, a puzzle piece to the jigsaw problem that they are solving right now in order to provide a better future for the human race. So, Hazwan, you have any other words to conclude?
Could you go back to the slide before? Many people really helped us throughout this project. Teachers, the professors we talked to, even our own friends. And one of the teachers there in the red shirt, Mr. Khalid, he's been with us for a long time, the whole of last year, in fact. And PISTEK was actually his last competition with us before he retired. And really, PISTEK was, us winning PISTEK was a large thank you. It was a more of a going away present for him, because what we were doing, what we hoped to do, it made a smile on his face. It it really we saw the look in his eyes when we went for projects, when we presented. We saw that he really was interested in doing this project, and having to leave MCKK, having to retire, it really broke his heart. And us winning PISTEK, being national champions, was one of the greatest going away presents we could ever give him, really. Yeah.
Well, and basically conclude. Thank you, Azwan, for that honest opinion, for that honest thought. We could have done this without the help of others, with the help of my parents, our parents, family, friends, relatives, and even not to forget the honorable teachers that assisted us, gave us support through this whole journey that we've been through. And this includes the future that we will endure later on. We won't be able to stand together only as two in the team or four in the team. We will have to gain a lot of support from everyone, and that includes the public itself, because what is a product without the consumers? So that would be all from our presentation today. Let science prevail.
Right. Thank you, Anik and Haris, for the sharing. It was interesting. Okay. Now we would like to proceed the session with we can start it with the Q&A session. Okay,
Sure.
from the chat box, from Nurhayati Basri, she said, good job, Anik, and also Haris. Let me see from our Facebook. There is a question from Arif Amer Ali.
Hi,
Okay.
Slim.
According to Arif, his question is, when you scale this up, wouldn't it cost way more because you wouldn't be using DIY materials? And on extraction wise, how would that work?
All right. Thank you, Arif Amiali, for that very interesting question. We've been asked that question multiple times before, and to be honest, our honest answer was that thing is, in life, not everything is for free. Humans, we make mistakes, and for that mistakes, we would have to come with solutions. We have to pay back in order to overcome those problems that we made in the past. So we don't actually see that cost of a burden if it were to work one day, because having something built not for the benefit of us, but this is actually for the benefit of the whole world, for the futures. As Hazwan mentioned earlier, these microplastics, they may seem simple, they may seem redundant to talk of and all, but really, as Hazwan said, we are eating a whole credit card every week from our food that we gain from the animals that ingested the plastics. And it is quite concerning, as plastics, they can act as a surface to inhibit microbacterial growth, and that will bring upon diseases. So as you can see, this is not only for us, but this is for the future of the humankind. Well, for Boyansat's project, it did not cost a penny for him. It cost him the fund of millions and billions of dollars, but he never did it on his own. He did it with the support of the whole internet community, with the will to change the world. And that is why we said earlier that it is important to have support from everyone in order to achieve a unanimous goal. So yes, cost, it may grow, but seriously, we wouldn't see it as a big problem. And for extraction wise, yes, we have done a bit of calculations. It would improve their extraction way better if the size were to be bigger, since from a smaller scale, you can see the yield wouldn't be that much. So I hope that answers the question, Arif.
All right. Okay. Move on to our chat box. There's one question here from Arjun.
Yeah.
What made you do this project?
Haris, you would like to answer?
Yeah, sure. What made us do this project? First, well, it was when our science teacher, Miss Farah, she one day she suddenly called all the four of us to the art room actually, and she told us that we would be going to India, like out of the blue, like suddenly, boom, you're going to India. What? And there we brainstormed. We thought of crazy ideas. And one of the crazy ideas was a magnet to attract plastic, because Anik was reading about microplastics and how they couldn't be extracted from water. And then we were thinking about it, like, what, magnets for plastic? That's one of the
Most
weirdest
ridiculous
ideas I've
thing.
ever heard.
Yes.
Yeah, a magnet for plastic. So innovation, if is actually just weird ideas, just weird inspiration, weird ideas trying to become a reality, weird dreams. That's what this project was. It was something weird that we wanted to do, that if we could do it, it would be wow, that's cool. And what we did is, and the inspiration for our project actually was, it's a it's an electrostatic precipitator. It actually works in air, and we tried to make this work in water. That was why Coulomb's constant before was in air. That was the equation for the electrostatic precipitator. And we tried to do it underwater. Of course, it didn't work. And that's when we went to our teachers, our contacts, professors that we knew. And after that, we adapted the project. We came up with a new, we calculated a new constant. We researched a lot, and that's how we came up with the Hydrostat, our project.
Right. Thank you, Haris. All right. Okay, another question in the chat box from Amelia Saif. Hi, I have a question. Have you guys patented this product? If so, what did you patent? The name, materials, method, or anything else?
Thank you for that very interesting and intriguing question. Well, we have not yet patented this project since we are lacking of funds, but we plan to do so after we finish our SPM basically. So about providing intellectual property or patent for the project, yes, we will want to, because not only just to make sure that this isn't widely copied anywhere elsewhere in the world, and basically what to patent on the project, not really much about the name or the body itself or the marketing of the project itself. It's basically that one circuit that we built together from the help of our friends and relatives. That would be the main thing to patent, as that will be the only thing to provide, as to build the hydrostat itself is relatively easy. We only use PVC pipes and carry it around. Anyone could build that. So yeah, it will be mainly the circuit of the hydrostat.
Right. Thanks, Anik. Okay, moving on to our Facebook comment. Okay, I believe we have so many fans named Arif. This is from Arif Azwa. Earlier was Arif Amir Ali.
I see.
From Arif Azwa, on a larger scale, has any projection done on the cost of the electrical parts and the mesh to be practically applied at the sea?
All right. In regards to the cost, we haven't, being honest, we haven't really done the calculations about how much will it cost the money, but we only have done just to make sure that it won't be like a something that is just in our heads upon cloud nine. We did the calculations if we were to increase the scale of the hydrostat itself. So cost effective, we aren't still aren't yet sure, but for now we are sure that it won't cost as much as what is already out there, since you only want to, the idea is only the circuit, the schematics, and that only like to build one circuit, it costs like around, how much was it? Around maybe 30 ringgit for that whole board. If that were to be increased to a larger scale, hopefully it won't be that much of a pocket burning thing. But as for efficiency of the idea itself, yes, we are sure it will do it. It will do great. Sorry.
Right. Right. Last question for today. Okay. Do you currently being approached by any university or industry on your project? Currently, are you guys collaborating with any other university or industry on this?
Paris?
I don't.
Basically, we have not yet proposed this idea to any such institutions such as universities or any lab organizations, but we have been in contact with one professor, which happens to be a friend of Hazwan's father. So from that, we are slowly building up, but yeah, one day we plan to actually propose this to maybe the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation to gain funds, and we will need the human power to actually collaborate on this project to make it a real thing in the real world.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry. It was not the last question. There's another question in the chat box. All right, this is from Rebecca. Her question is, how big will this machine, if it's built in a real life sign, will it not harm the aquatic life since it's using electric? How to collect the materials that the machine managed to get? There's 3 questions.
All right. For the first question, it's about how big this will get. Okay. So as far to size, we aren't that concerned since the size really depends on the size of the yield you actually want. So if you want a bigger yield, you have to only increase the size of the netting and the aluminium plate as stated earlier. The body can be engineered later, but that isn't really a contributing factor to the size, as it isn't really crucial for the functionality of the hydrostat itself. Maybe to increase the efficiency, we have to slightly play around and toy around with the perfect voltages and current to be used for the hydrostat. So yes, we have thought of that about how this will harm fish life. But we found out that actually it won't, since it isn't actually conducting electric charges in water. It isn't actually conducting electric current in water, as it is only playing with the use of the ions present in the salt water itself. And yes, so even if it were to harm any fish, it wouldn't, since the voltage that we use is relatively low, which for the project was only around 9 volts. But if we were to increase it to around maybe let's say 15 volts or more, it wouldn't be much of a problem, since the sea is it's a really large body of water, and to have the charges dispersed around the ocean, it wouldn't be big much of a harm to the aquatic life. And for the last question, can you repeat that question?
It was how to collect the materials that the machine managed to get.
I see. So basically, the way this works as true concept and what we have tried, since it uses the concept of electrostatics, and so basically, when there is current flowing into the circuit, the plastics will get attracted. But after we switch off the circuit, we found out that all of the plastics fell off quite easily. So the idea we have on collecting the circuits was basically to have a retractable net. We can bring up and down, we can bring out and in from the water. And as soon as we would like to collect the yield, all we have to do is place the netting onto a container or such and simply switch off the electricity flow. That will generally discharge all of the particles attracted to the netting itself.
All right. Thank you, Anik and Hazwan. Okay. The time is almost 10:30 now. So, but before we end the session, I would like to inform the participant that we have prepared a feedback form. So kindly fill up the feedback form after the webinar. Your response are very important in helping us to assess the effectiveness of this webinar. And before we take a group picture, I would like to announce our next session, our next webinar. At 11 o'clock, we will have this math quiz competitions with title Limit Breaker. And then at 1 o'clock, we will have the webinar by Guru Icon STEM, Perkongsian Inovasi STEM Bangunan Tahan Gempa by teacher Hanafiah Eddie Chong. And our last webinar for today and this year would be at 3 p.m. But this will be the math quiz competition. So feel free to join us back at 11, 1, and also 3 o'clock. I would like, on behalf of e-KLESF, I would like to thank both of you for your time and for your sharing. And before we end this session, I would like to call upon our participant to switch on your camera so that we can take a group picture with Anik and also Haris. Right, so we will take a few shots. So you guys just be ready. Please put a big smile on your face. Okay, let's start the first one. Smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay, give me one moment. All right, second one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there you go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having us with you today. Thank you for spending your weekend with us. For Anik and for Haris, we wish you all the best for your future plan. We wish you all good luck. We hope that you would be able to patent your project one day. And we look forward to collaborate with you again in future.
Sure.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Really
Okay.
looking forward to that.
Thank you. Okay, then if there's nothing else, we will end this session soon. Should there be any question from the participant that you unable to ask it here, you can always check our Facebook, and you can leave your comment in our Facebook, and we will forward it to Anik and also Haris. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Please take care of yourself. Stay safe. Bye. Assalamualaikum.
Bagus.